Hello and welcome back. Amber here, and today I'm going to talk about something that might be considered a bit controversial, and that's Mat's Ashandarei in the Wheel of Time television show. Now, a lot of book fans were confused or adamant that the dagger on a stick won't replace his famous Ashandarei from the books, and some people think the change was a bad choice. I was recently discussing this topic with someone on my Discord server and decided I have a lot of thoughts about this, so why not make a video about it? Because I'm in the camp of people who actually think that the change isn't really a big deal, and narratively, there are some big book examples that make it kind of cool when you explore Mat's character and the way that he employs tactics throughout the series. Now, this isn't to tell you, well, you should actually like the change because of XYZ, but just a topic that I think is really interesting and I just want to talk about it. So let's get into the details. I think the most famous person who really disliked the change was Brandon Sanderson, who publicly stated, "I'm sorry. Using the dagger on a spear is the same thing as using it. You're touching it. It's a metaphor for using the darkness and accepting it. It's a metaphor for turning to the dark side. It misses the whole point. Mat's arc is not about weaponizing his darkness. That's Perrin's arc and finding that balance. Mat's arc is very different from that, and doing this just bothers me. I don't feel it was built up through the season that his arc would be about weaponizing his own darkness and walking that line. And this is where things get kind of cool, because obviously everyone has their own interpretations of the book text. There's a literary theory called the death of the author, which argues that the meaning of a text is not determined by the author's intention, but rather the reader's interpretation. So I really understand why Mr. Sanderson was so frustrated by a change that didn't match up with his perception of what the ruby-hilted dagger symbolizes. And I'm not here to tell him he's wrong. His headcanon was that the dagger represents giving in to darkness. Personally, I never saw the dagger that way. To me, it was a plot device to give Mat's story a challenge to overcome, and more of a parable teaching a lesson about the dangers of impulsivity. The dagger itself isn't of the shadow, and it doesn't have a connection to the Dark One. Its origins stem from something entirely different. The dagger itself, in my eyes, was never evil. It's like an infection, a non sentient virus. It doesn't think or feel, it has no intentions. If I had to simplify its existence into a metaphor, it would be overcoming corruption. So, to make the connection about weaponizing darkness, I have to go on a bit of a Wheel of Time history tangent. Because in this case, all roads lead to Aridhol and Mordeth's theory that to defeat the shadow, one had to fight fire with fire. Now, the Wheel of Time wiki page describes Mordeth as originally a good man, devoted to destroying the shadow. He went in search of many powers, including the Fin. Unfortunately, he found a number of dark things, including the power of Shadar, which would ultimately corrupt him and define the rest of his life. And to put you into the mindset of what things were like during his time, Mordeth lived during the Trolloc Wars, which was essentially 350 years of sheer carnage where nations were falling left and right to shadow spawn and other forces of the Dark One. Humanity was desperate, and the king of Aridhol needed a solution. So when Mordeth walked himself into the gates, requesting an audience with King Balwin, he presented his theory that to win in a war against the shadow, evil was required to fight evil, and King Balwin decides to go along with it. But soon things get dark. The nation and its inhabitants start to succumb to Mordeth's fanatical overzealousness and become crazed. They adopt a new battle cry that the victory of the light is all. And then the nation just kind of vanishes into smoke. No one knows exactly what happened, but it is believed that the city was poisoned by Mordeth and turned on one another, leaving nothing behind besides Mordeth, trapped there, and Mashadar, a soul consuming entity that hunts anyone who enters. The ruins of this nation are currently called Shadar Logoth, which is where Mat finds the dagger, and the rest is history. But this whole story raises the question of whether or not it's possible to successfully employ Mordeth's tactic of fighting evil with evil. Because in the television show, Mat does exactly that. He uses the ruby hilted Shadar Logoth dagger as a weapon. He weaponizes darkness to fight the army at Falm. So, why should Mat Cauthon succeed where Mordeth and the entire nation of Aridhol failed? What makes him so special? I think the big difference is that Mat is no longer tempted by the corruption of the dagger. He's changed. He's now a better version of himself. I think it's possible that the moment he crafted the Ashandarei was the moment where his luck really changed, which is something that Mordeth and the citizens of Aridhol didn't have. They didn't have a in-world plot armor device of Taviran nature or luck like Mat Cauthon does. And in the books, there is a pretty great example of Mat weaponizing darkness to fight the Dark One that feels like a really good indication that this is something Mat could and should be doing in the television show. It might even be a subtle nod of foreshadowing done by the television writers, paying some homage to that specific plot in the last book. But before I go any deeper, just a heads up that this will cover a section from A Memory of Light. So if you haven't read it, I'll leave a timestamp on the screen so you can skip ahead. In this segment of the books, Mat has had a nightmarish encounter in a town called Hinderstap, where a phenomenon called bubbles of evil take place and strange otherworldly occurrences keep popping up. At Hinderstap, the residents seem friendly and welcoming, but each evening at sunset, every man, woman, and child who resides in the town goes completely feral, picking up farm equipment, knives, and weapons, where they slaughter and kill anyone they encounter, friend against friend, neighbor against neighbor, only to wake up the next morning in their beds, respawned and alive like nothing happened. When we fast forward to the last battle, Mat uses Ashaman to transport the townspeople of Hinderstap into the thick of battle, where they can die over and over again, but wake up each morning unharmed to repeat the process. It's actually brilliant. And it's a prime example of Mat's outside the box thinking, where he uses the Dark One's evil, weaponizing it for the side of the light. I really love this moment because it comes so close to the end of the story, and you can see how far Mat has come, but it also shows that he's still a quick-witted scamp who has a talent for outsmarting the shadow. Ironically, this storyline didn't come from Robert Jordan or his notes. Sanderson is quoted saying, "This was my creation, devised after Harriet asked me to be more disturbing and horrifying." And I'm glad that it was included because it's one of my favorite moments within the last book. And when Sanderson also says, Mat's arc isn't about weaponizing darkness, I'd agree. I think his arc is more about going from a reckless, dagger corrupted, unwilling hero to a dutiful tactician willing to accept and embrace his destiny. But it also shows that this idea stemming from Mordeth and Aridhol carries over within the book series to the television show, and it's honestly kind of funny that Sanderson didn't make the connection. The dagger on a stick, or Ashandarei, or whatever you want to call it, symbolizes and really pinpoints Mat's cleverness and growth. In the television show, when he is healed from the Shadar Logoth corruption by Moraine, it's not by his own hands. So there's no internal growth here. He doesn't make a conscious decision to be better or to do better. But when he crafts the Ashandarei from objects in the room he was held captive in and escapes Padanfane, it shows intent and a chance for him to overcome the things in his past that have been holding him back. It's a continuation of his healing, only this time with agency in the matter. And of course, I would have liked to see some things handled a little differently. Is it logical that Mat can tie a dagger to a stick and it holds together for an extended battle? Probably not, but his luck typically tends to carry him through unscathed. I can forgive it as long as it's permanently attached at some point. He is traveling with a blacksmith after all. Another thing that I think really solidifies the debate for me is that the dagger on a stick can do everything his Ashandarei can do. Only this time, it came from his own two hands versus it coming from an accidental wish given to an extra dimensional fairy foxman. It wasn't just luck that he finds a way to protect himself in the show, which makes it more representative to his internal growth. The Ashandarei symbolizes so many things like leadership, responsibility, the echoes of his past life, but specifically his adaptability and versatility. It's a little bit of an unorthodox weapon, so I don't mind it having an unorthodox origin in the television show. It focuses more on him maturing and less on his luck, and I think that's okay. There is still a lot of his story to see, and that can come in later. But it also doesn't mean other interpretations of the events aren't valid. So let me know what you think. I know this is a bit of a touchy subject, so please remain considerate in the comment section. A very special thanks to my channel members and Patreon members. If you enjoyed this video, please show it some love by giving it a like and subscribe to the channel. I don't often do character weapon examinations, but this was just too much fun to pass up on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back next time.